All right, number 4 over at PFF.com. The New York Jets, fourth best roster. Agree or disagree with this one, Sam? When we were going through our exercise, we said, yeah, their top three was pretty clear, but they probably had five guys who could all be in that mix. What do you think about the Jets being here at 4?
I think this is a really good roster still. We tend to view it, I think, not unfairly, but we view it in negative light because of what happened last year. But they went from, having theoretically an all-pro level quarterback to having one of the worst, if not the worst, quarterback starters in football. And that's, and even with that, they still, flirted with the playoffs for most of the season. So they've upgraded the offensive line significantly. Like, you bring in 3 new starters and a contingency for the one new starter that's always going to be injured at some point during the season, with Fashanu backing up Tyron Smith at left tackle. So the weakest part of last year's roster got a significant overhaul, and you're getting Aaron Rodgers back again. In theory, I think it is one of the top rosters in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, you steal a Morgan Moses at right tackle. Just that move alone helps move that roster forward. This is all contingent upon the injury situation, of course, right? I mean, we're looking at depth charts. We're factoring in depth, but even with Tyron Smith, maybe iffy. Can he actually play over 1,000 snaps? Can he make it through a 17-game schedule? Yeah, but you have Olu Fashanu as a backup, who I think can step in and hold his own at left tackle, at least in pass protection as a rookie. Mike Williams coming off of injury. So, I mean, if it depends on these guys staying healthy. Of course, that's true for everybody, but they specifically brought in older, injury-prone type of players like Mike Williams, like Tyron Smith, Aaron Rodgers coming off the Achilles. So, yeah, on paper, this does look like an outstanding roster. A little bit of turnover on the defensive side of the ball with Bryce Huff out, but Hassan Reddick in, right? They're still going to be loaded up front, able to rush the passer. And they have 2 straight years of playing really good defense. It is difficult to keep up that consistency and play lights out defense year over year. But I think the offense will be better. They don't have to be as good defensively. They still have all the same pieces. I'm just saying, even if they face a little bit of natural regression on that side of the ball, obviously having Rodgers back with some of these playmakers, better offensive line should offset that. So, yeah, I agree the Jets are in this mix. I don't know if I have them at 4. They might be more 5 or 6 for me with some of the other teams. I like the Lions ahead of them. And, it's the Chiefs who I mentioned, so I'd probably bump the Jets down a little bit, but they're definitely in the range here to be one of the better rosters in the NFL.
And by the way, they've upgraded a backup quarterback as well. I mean, their season still likely hinges on whether Aaron Rodgers can move on his Achilles or not. But if they do have to turn to the backup for an extended period of time, Tyrod Taylor's a better backup than Zach Wilson was.
By the way, just as a quick aside, do you think teams, especially with older quarterbacks, would ever just sit a quarterback, like just load manage an older quarterback? Would you ever just start Tyrod Taylor? I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but in the future with the 17-game schedule, just if you have a good enough backup, just give the extra rest to the older quarterback. I think it might be worth considering, especially if the Jets are in a decent spot, down the stretch.
I don't know if you're ever going to purely load manage, simply because, there's so few games relative to other sports that it's kind of taking the piss to be like, look, you've got 17 games and we're going to give you 4 of them off just because we can, right? It just seems crazy. But I do think that you can easily err on not even the side of caution, but your body's really banged up this week. Don't worry about it. This is a Tyrod game. You don't even have to think about it. But that kind of you need to be really, really good, because you still need, most of the time, you still need to win those games, right? You either need to be completely cool with, we only need to make the playoffs. Seeding is irrelevant. We don't care what number we are. If we just make a wild card spot, we're happy. The important part is the postseason. Just getting there is the only goal for the regular season. And maybe we're reaching that point, right, where teams are actually going to be focused on that. Honestly, outside of that number 1 seed, the rest of it is not irrelevant, but it's far less important anyway. So in a landscape where there's a ton of teams vying for that number 1 seed, maybe it is more important to keep your aging quarterback upright than it is to have him out there every single week trying to secure the number one seed that you might not get anyway. But you would have to be cool with that, and then you would have to be really careful the games that you're essentially voluntarily playing a backup.